Hi, and welcome to this video lesson titled Instagram Marketing Basics. I'm Alice Roach, and I'm a Senior Research Associate in the Division of Applied Social Sciences at the University of Missouri. This video is part of a project titled Marketing Opportunities for Missouri's Niche Meat and Poultry Processors. The project received funding from the Missouri Agricultural and Small Business Development Authority, and using that funding, a team at the university has developed information and resources that Missouri meat businesses can use to enhance their marketing. So in this presentation, we'll cover some background about Instagram in terms of who's using the platform, to what extent they're using the platform, and also to what extent they're engaging with businesses on the platform. And then we'll close by sharing some ideas about how you as a marketer can increase your number of Instagram followers. So to get started, I wanted to share with you about who tends to be using Instagram. And to do that, I'm relying on data here from the Pew Research Center. So in the first quarter of 2019, the Pew Research Center did some research and understanding how US adults had been using various social media platforms. And what it found was that just more than 1/3 of US adults said that they had accessed Instagram at some point. Instagram use tended to vary somewhat according to different demographic factors, and one of those was age. So we see that younger people have been more likely to adopt the platform than older people. The chart on the screen reinforces that point. So what the chart is sharing is the percentage of US adults who said that they had at some point accessed the Instagram platform. So among that 18 to 24-year-old segment, 75% of US adults in that category said that they had at some point accessed Instagram. And then as age increases, the likelihood of having used Instagram decreases. Other demographic factors that tend to affect whether someone has used Instagram include gender, race and ethnicity, and also geographic location. So women have been more likely than men to say that they've used Instagram. Hispanic adults have been more likely than Black adults or white adults to say that they've used the platform. And then rural adults have been less likely to say that they've used the platform than their urban and suburban counterparts. Instagram first launched in 2010, so it recently celebrated its 10th anniversary. And since that launch, Instagram has steadily increased the number of users. Today, we see that Instagram has about 1 billion users, but only 10% of those users are located in the US. So other top markets for Instagram use include Brazil, Indonesia, India, and Russia. The data that you see on the screen, though, are specific to US Instagram users. And these data were sourced from eMarketer. In the July 2019 time period, eMarketer released these projections about how Instagram's user base would change in the US through 2023. So you can see that eMarketer shared that Instagram had about 100 million users in 2018. And then by 2023, eMarketer was projecting that the platform in the US would have 125 million users. The line that you see in the chart here is the growth rate in number of users. So there was a 10% growth rate in 2018. That growth rate is projected to decline to 3.4% in 2023. So what this is telling us is that Instagram is becoming a more mature platform. So we're seeing that growth drop off. So now that we understand more about who's using the platform, I want to dive deeper into understanding the extent of use on the platform. Nearly 2/3 of Instagram users use the platform on a daily basis. So this is a really loyal segment of that total user population. In terms of how much time users spend on the platform, in 2020, it was projected that Instagram users would spend about half an hour a day on the platform, and that would be a 14% increase relative to 2019. As far as why we're seeing an increase, it's likely partially attributed to the coronavirus pandemic and people spending more time on social media instead of interacting face-to-face with friends and family. In terms of when people tend to be using the platform, we've seen that engagement peaks overall globally at about 11 a.m. on Wednesdays, and then from like 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Fridays. But the engagement tends to vary by industry. So in the food and beverage industry, we tend to see that noon on Fridays has produced good engagement. If you're looking for a time to post, if you're just getting started on Instagram, you can consider these times whenever engagement tends to be high overall as a good place to start. If you do have a more established Instagram presence, then you can mine your own analytics data to find out more about when your particular followers are online. And then I would urge you to use those data to make decisions about when you decide to post to reach your own particular audience segment. Instagram users are interested and willing to engage with businesses on the platform. So it's estimated that there are 200 million users who will go to a business profile on a daily basis. So that's about 20% of that total number of Instagram users globally. Just specific to the US user base, about 83% of US users agree that Instagram helps them to discover products, and 80% of them say that Instagram helps them to research products and services. And then just more than half of US users say that they have purchased either a product or service after having seen it on Instagram. So users are clearly using Instagram to learn about new products and services and also help to shape their purchase decisions. So because of this, marketers are increasingly interested in using Instagram as a channel to share marketing messages. And eMarketer shared some data and projections just to sort of help us understand the extent to which marketers are using various platforms for their marketing efforts. And these data were produced toward the end of 2018. And so what this chart is sharing with us is the percentage of US businesses that have at least 100 employees who are using various social media platforms for marketing purposes. So 75% rather of those businesses said that they were using Instagram as a marketing platform. You can also see that the top platform being used was Facebook. So in terms of how to make your business's Instagram content really stand out is to strive for engagement, because you will have a lot of competition, not only from just users' posts, but also posts provided by businesses. So what you're really looking for is that good engagement with your posts. When users interact with your content or they're engaging with it, that means that users who don't follow your particular page will have an increased likelihood to then discover your business. So that's the logic that's ultimately motivating what you see in that Instagram Explore page. So for a given user, what you see on that Instagram Explore page sort of relies on three different factors. And the first is what you as a user like. So what have you followed and what have you engaged with in the past? The second factor is what others in your network tend to like. And then the third factor is what posts have had good engagement. So you as a marketer can really only control that third piece, what posts have had good engagement. If you're developing content that tends to rack up a good amount of engagement, that increases your likelihood of your content then appearing on that Instagram Explore page. And that should be a goal of yours just because of the sheer number of Instagram users that are going to that Instagram Explore page to find new products, services, businesses, and so forth that they may not have known existed before. So half of users each month say that they're visiting the Explore page on Instagram. There are a few recommendations that you can keep in mind if you're looking for ways to break into that Explore page. And the first is to create content that interests your audience. So I've mentioned this in a couple of times in this presentation. You want to create content that's most likely to be engaged with. So find content that you think is important or of interest to your audience and then offer up that content on a regular basis. You also want to post at times that maximize reach. So when you're having a greater audience, you have a greater likelihood of having some of those audience members interacting with your content. So you want to time your post in a way that you have the greatest opportunity to reach the greatest number of people. In your post, you can also post questions. So those questions can facilitate dialogue, and those dialogues are comments and so forth are considered engagement. You can also involve influencers. So influencers are people on Instagram who have a large following. Those people who have large followings, if they're mentioning your company, you're mentioning your products and services, that gives you an opportunity to be in front of more people and increase your company's visibility. You can also monitor your own Explore page. So just you as a user can observe what you see in the Explore page and learn from what seem to be effective strategies for breaking into that Explore page. And then the last recommendation is to add some action. So adding action, by that I refer to adding videos or adding some sort of a graphic that has animation. When you open up that Explore page and you see some of the pieces of content having motion, that tends to attract your attention. And so you may be wanting to click on that particular piece of content that does have that motion, because that's where your eyes tend to go first. So I want to close today just by providing some context about what you can expect from engagement. And that's helpful because you can measure then how well your posts engagement are measuring up against other businesses' posts. So the data that you see on the screen were provided by Rival IQ, and Rival IQ studied posts from more than 2,100 businesses to try to find what's an average engagement rate for all industries and then an average engagement rate by industries. So the all industry median was about 1.2% for engagement. And then you can see how average engagement varies according to industry. So for the food and beverage industry, average engagement was about 1.2%. For retail, it was a little lower at 0.7%. And then influencers had the highest engagement of these particular subsets at 1.7%. So that wraps up this video lesson. Thanks so much for joining us. There is a companion video where you can find more Instagram best practices. You can look for that video's URL in the video description. Thank you.